They call me a rebel, but I am simply the first to stand and name the hands strangling my homeland with corrupt deals and century-long contracts.
When I first heard those words, they didn't just reach my ears, they sank into my soul. They didn't reverberate from a podium, they resounded in my bones. I've seen those hands myself. I felt the invisible grip they tighten around my people's throats. I watched them clasp palms in conference rooms while their fingers coil a noose around our sovereignty. They call me a rebel, but what is a rebel if not someone who refuses to bow to injustice? What is a rebel if not one who dares to speak when silence is demanded? What is a rebel if not someone who sees through the masks of diplomacy and names them for what they are? Predators in suits, saviors in disguise, thieves with logos. I am that person, and I know I am no longer alone. For too long, we've lived under a script we didn't write. A script pinned in European capitals, printed in Washington, polished in Davos, and broadcast by networks that claim to inform, but instead distort. A script casting us as the poor, the desperate, the corrupt, the helpless, forever needing Western pity, never worthy of respect. But I refuse to play that role any longer. You won't see me starving on your TV screens pleading for foreign aid. You won't frame me beside a dying child or a fly-covered plate. I stand today not to beg, but to accuse. Not to ask for a seat, but to shatter the table. The world they depict is not our reality. The truth is, we are not poor, we are being plundered. We are not voiceless, we are silenced. We are not backward, we are restrained. It's time the world heard this from us, not from their experts, not from their reporters, not from their filtered headlines, but from us. So yes, call me a rebel. I rebel against the notion that exploitation is diplomacy. I rebel against the lie that suffering is our fate. I rebel against the silence that has turned generations into accomplices. This is not just my voice. It's the start of a storm. And storms don't ask for permission, they arrive. I wasn't always this way. There was a time I believed their words. I fell for the beautiful lie. As a child, I sat on a concrete floor, gazing at a glowing television, watching white men in vests distribute food to children who looked like me. They called it aid. They called it hope. And I believed them. How could I not? The screen said they were saving us. My teacher said they were helping us. The books in my school library, written in foreign languages, said they brought civilization to our land. They echoed those words. I thanked men I'd never met for things they never gave. I grew up thinking the world was fair, or at least striving to be, that the system was flawed but working toward progress. And I looked closer. I saw that the hand giving food was the same one signing contracts to take our minerals. I noticed the medicine they donated often expired before it could help. I saw the roads they built led not to our villages, but to their mines, their oil fields, their extraction sites. I once thought foreign investment meant opportunity, but I saw profits that never stayed, companies that arrived with promises and left with everything else. I saw water sources fenced off, forests razed, and families displaced, all in the name of development. I once trusted their numbers until I saw they were rigged. They said we were developing nations, implying we'd one day arrive, but no one told me the journey was designed to never end. That developing wasn't a path, it was a trap. They said we lacked governance, but omitted the puppet strings. They called us corrupt, but never mentioned who offered the bribes. They preached democracy, but always seemed to choose our leaders before we could. I remember the day it all shattered. I saw a photograph of my village taken by a Western journalist. The frame showed cracked earth, shirtless children, rusted tin roofs. No smiles, no context, just pity. The caption read, "A forgotten place in need of foreign aid." That I was born there, I knew the songs of those people, I'd shared their meals, felt their joy, heard their wisdom, and I realized they didn't forget us. They never knew us at all. That's when the questions began. Why are we always the ones needing help? Why are we rich in resources but poor in everything else? Why do they bring solutions but never stay to hear our questions? The beautiful lie crumbled, and in its ruins, I found the truth. We were never broken. We were broken into. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but when the media captures us, they choose one word: hopeless. Turn on any global news channel, CNN, BBC, AFP, and you'll see my continent through a distorted lens. They focus on famine, war, corruption, As if that's our only story, a parade of suffering edited to fit their tired narrative. Africa, the needy child. Africa, the unstable experiment. Africa, the eternal tragedy. But they never show the mines building satellites in Ghana. They never show the women leading revolutions in Sudan. They never show the farmers in Burkina Faso coaxing crops from dust. They never show the books, the code, the symphonies, the fire, because that doesn't fit their script. They define me in headlines without asking who I am. When they report on us, they aren't informing, they're branding. Every word is a weapon cloaked in objectivity. Tribal clashes, militants, unstable regions. These aren't descriptions, they're distortions. You rarely hear activist or patriot unless they live in Paris. Here we're insurgents, radicals, rebels. They don't show our pain to heal us, they show it to sell it. Every image of a starving child has a corporate sponsor. Every documentary about our poverty ends with a donation link, not to us, but to them. And when we speak out, they silence us. When we protest, they call us dangerous. When we challenge their narrative, they change the subject. They claim to know us, but I dare them, look me in the eye and tell me what you see, a story or a statistic. And I remember a journalist who visited my town. He was polite, curious, but when I spoke of local resistance to foreign mining, he nodded and moved on. When I showed him our community school built without foreign aid, he said it wasn't visually compelling. When I asked what story he came to tell, he looked away. He already had his angle. So I stopped waiting for fair portrayal. I stopped begging to be understood. I stopped hoping they'd get it right. Instead, I started writing my own story. Because when the media defines you, they confine you. They don't want truth. They want a digestible narrative. In that narrative, I must be a victim worth saving or a rebel worth eliminating. There's no room for me to be complex, human, sovereign, but I'm done with their roles. I'm not their cautionary tale. I'm not their moral lesson. I'm not their photo opportunity. I am the author now, and I am rewriting everything. They say numbers don't lie, so let's talk numbers. Burkina Faso produces over 36 tons of gold annually. But how much stays with Burkinabe people? Less than 10%. The rest vanishes into offshore accounts, foreign stock markets, and multinational ledgers. That's not a leak. It's a system. Congo holds over 60% of the world's cobalt, the metal powering your smartphones, electric cars, your green revolution. Yet millions of Congolese children have never seen a light bulb in their homes. Niger ranks as the fourth largest uranium producer globally. France gets nearly 70% of its electricity from nuclear power, much of it fueled by Niger's soil. But visit a village in Zinder and ask if they have electricity. Ask what uranium has brought them. The answer, silence, darkness, betrayal. But this isn't natural poverty, it's organized looting. They took our gold and left us dust. They took our diamonds and left us blood. They took our oil and left us in the dark. They call it investment. I call it extraction. They call it trade. I call it theft with paperwork. And yet they say we're poor. We were never poor. We were made poor by design. You see, they no longer arrive with guns. They come with suits, contracts, and PowerPoint slides. They offer public partnerships, but the public always bleeds. They provide loans with strings tighter than any noose. They call it development, but it only develops their profits. I've read the reports. I've seen the audits. The numbers are stark. For every $1.00 Africa receives in aid, $24.00 flows out in profits, debt payments, tax evasion, and illicit outflows. $100 billion. 0 cents leaves the continent yearly. Not by chance, but by design. More money exits Africa than enters, yet they call us beggars. So tell me, who truly depends on whom? It's not just the minerals, it's the mines. Our engineers are hired to build their cities. Our doctors leave to heal their wealthy. Our artists flee to tell their stories elsewhere. Because here, hunger and instability choke the oxygen of culture. They say we must manage our resources better, but how do you manage what's already been looted? How do you plan a future when your present is mortgaged to debts your ancestors never signed? These numbers aren't statistics, they're scars. The ledger of 500 years of extraction. From slave ships to stock markets, until we confront these numbers with courage, we'll keep mistaking oppression for misfortune. So let the numbers speak, because when they do, they scream. You might ask, how does this still happen? We're no longer under direct rule. No foreign flag flies over our capitals. We have presidents, parliaments, constitutions, but look closer. Colonialism never left. It rebranded. It swapped uniforms, traded muskets for trade deals, and replaced armies with accountants. This isn't a theory, it's a mechanism. A machine so precise, it no longer needs chains. The mind is enough. Here's how it works. Step 1, corrupt the local leadership. The first step is internal decay. No need to invade when you can buy leaders. Bribe a few ministers, fund an election, offer a loan, and suddenly your signature unlocks their resources. Don't need to control everyone, just the few in suits at the table. We call it politics, they call it access. Step 2, lock in contracts for 99 years. Once power is secured, the pen takes over. Mining rights, land leases, oil concessions. These aren't agreements, they're shackles. They bind unborn generations to decisions made by traitors. These contracts hide secrecy clauses, foreign arbitration courts, and penalties for nationalization. Break them and you owe. Keep them and you bleed. That's not partnership, it's colonization with consent. Step 3, seize infrastructure. Ports, railways, telecoms, power grids, handed to investors for efficiency. But who do they serve? Our roads lead from mines to ports, not villages to schools. Our electricity powers their refineries, while our homes stay dark. When something breaks, we pay them to fix what they own. On our land, they privatized our lifelines. Step 4, justify it with security. The final insult, claiming it's for our protection. They send soldiers, trainers, drones. They build bases to fight terror. But the terror always seems near a gas pipeline or gold mine. They say they're stabilizing us, but who armed the rebels? Who profits from chaos? Who sells weapons to both sides, then signs peace deals on branded podiums? Their peace is our silence. Step 5, shape the narrative. Finally, they ensure we never know this happened. They fund media, think tanks, NGOs. They flood social media with headlines that deflect and distract. They train our journalists, write our textbooks, produce our documentaries. They make exploitation look like progress. They tell us to be patient, to wait for growth, to trust the system. But how long must we wait for justice from a system built on injustice? These 5 steps, corruption, contracts, control, coercion, confusion, are not abstract. They're active. They're everywhere. Modern colonialism doesn't need flags. It needs only silence. And I refuse to be silent. They don't just steal resources. They steal leaders. They don't just silence dissent, they assassinate hope. Ask yourself, why is it that when an African leader rises and says, we will keep our wealth for our people, the next headline reads, he died mysteriously? I once thought it was coincidence. Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara, Muammar Gaddafi, their names are etched not just in memory, but in blood. Lumumba was only 35, a man who dared say Congo would not bow to Belgium's shadow. He was kidnapped, beaten, executed, dissolved in acid. The West said nothing. The UN stood silent. His crime? Loving his people more than their offers. Tom Sankpaha, Burkina Faso's son, they called him Africa's Che Guevara, but he was more. Incorruptible, he sold the presidential Mercedes and rode a bicycle. He vaccinated millions. He told France, we owe you nothing. For that, his best friend pulled the trigger. But the fingerprints reached far beyond Ouagadougou. And Gaddafi? Whatever your view, know this. He dreamed of a gold-backed African currency. He funded Pan-African unity. He demanded independence from the IMF. Days later, NATO rained fire. Africa's richest nation became an open-air slave market. These men weren't perfect, no leader is, but their fatal flaw was daring to set us free. That's the true red line. Not human rights, not democracy, but sovereignty. You can be a dictator as long as your pipelines flow. You can jail journalists as long as your orships sail. You can rig elections as long as your debt payments arrive. But say we want our future and you're a threat to global stability. Funny how that works. They killed our visionaries and erased them from textbooks. They mocked their dreams and buried their speeches. They called them radicals, communists, madmen. But I've read their words and I wept, not from sorrow, but shame, because I was taught to forget them. They didn't die for failing. They died for succeeding. Now, I carry their names like torches in the dark, and I ask not what they'd have done differently, but what we must do now. If you can kill a man, but you cannot kill an idea whose time has come across the continent, I feel it, a stirring, a whisper becoming a roar. This generation isn't afraid of its fate. We're afraid of wasting it. They tried to bury these leaders, but they didn't know we were the seeds. They say they're helping us. They say they're saving us, but I've learned to scrutinize hands offering help too often. The other hand holds a contract, a condition, a chain. I once believed in aid. I watched the concerts, celebrities singing with fervor. I saw photos, white doctors in dusty villages giving medicine to brown children. I read headlines, $1 billion, 0 cents in relief sent to Africa. It felt good to believe someone cared. It felt good to think help was coming, but then I followed the money. And what I found broke everything. For every dollar of aid, they take 20 in debt payments, resource theft, and tax evasion. They make a show of giving food while draining our soil of minerals. They pose in refugee camps while their companies fund the wars creating refugees. It's a rigged theater. We're cast as eternal victims, grateful beggars, hopeless children needing rescue. Let me ask, if someone robs your home, then tosses you a loaf of bread, is that generosity? If someone poisons your water, then sells you bottled water, is that compassion? If someone traps your economy in debt, then offers technical assistance, is that friendship? That's their aid? They bring cameras when they arrive. They bring receipts. They bring press releases, but they never stay to see if anything changes because they don't want change. They want control. Do you know what aid really does? It breeds dependency. It creates jobs for their citizens, not ours. Their consultants earn 10 times our doctors' salaries. Their NGOs rent luxury SUVs while our schools collapse. They use our poverty as a career ladder, climb it, then leave. And when we criticize, they call us ungrateful. Ungrateful for crumbs tossed after their feast, for bandages handed after they stab us with debt. Here's a truth that scares them. We don't need their aid. We need fairness. We need the wealth we already own. We need freedom to use our resources, build our systems, write our future. Aid isn't help, it's hush money. It's the price they pay to keep us quiet, confused, compliant. But we're no longer quiet, we're no longer confused, and we're done complying. They keep their aid, we'll keep our dignity. There was a time we believed them. The politicians in suits, the economists on TV, the analysts preaching growth and stability. They said, be patient, trust the system, your turn will come. But we've waited, and what has patience brought? Unemployment, exile, exploitation disguised as opportunity. We're a generation born into broken promises, born into debt we never signed, born under flags that wave but don't protect. But here's what they didn't expect. We're no longer listening. We're connected, not by borders, but by bandwidth, not by newspapers, but by hashtags, not by permission, but by purpose. And now we speak for ourselves. They mock us, call us kids with phones, but we carry more than devices. We carry truth. We carry rage. We carry vision. I've seen it in Ouagadougou, Nairobi, Caracas, Gaza. Young people painting walls, marching streets, coding in cafes, editing videos through the night, exposing lies, reclaiming narratives, demanding justice. And they're scared because for the first time, they can't control the story. They can't censor the internet like they censored textbooks. They can't erase our memory with medals and monuments. They call us misinformed. No, we're informed differently. We're not fed by CNN. We're fueled by lived experience. They call us radical. No, we're reasonable. The system is radical, radically violent, radically unequal, radically outdated. We see through it all now. The development projects, building malls we can't afford, the climate funds paying foreign consultants not for clean water, the partnerships enriching our presidents while starving our provinces. We see it, we post it, we share it, we remix it into songs, scripts, slogans, until the world can't unsee it. And we're not alone. From Lagos slums to Dhaka alleys, from Rio favelas to Oakland back streets, a silent bond forms. We speak different languages but chant the same truth. We want our future back. They can't bribe us. We've seen what that does. They can't scare us. Fear was our inheritance. They can't shame us. We've nothing left to lose but illusion. They built glass towers and expected our awe. Now we reflect their lies back at them. They said, don't bite the hand that feeds you. But we looked closer and saw that hand was stealing all along. So we're not just awake, we're rising. And no one sleeps through a storm. They love lecturing us about democracy. They point fingers, hold summits, issue reports. They say, respect human rights, follow international law, become like us. But I've seen their democracy and what they do in its name. They invaded Iraq to liberate it, then left it burning. They bombed Libya to protect civilians and opened gates to slavery. They sanction nations until babies die, then call it freedom's price. They celebrate elections when the outcome suits them, but when it doesn't, they fund coups, whisper to generals, tighten economic nooses. Ask Venezuela, ask Iran, ask Mali, ask Haiti. To them, democracy isn't a principle, it's a tool, a weapon, a costume worn when convenient. They claim freedom of speech, but Julian Assange rots in prison. They value transparency, but Edward Snowden lives in exile. They oppose torture, yet Guantanamo Bay stands. So who decides what democracy is? Who defines human rights and enforces them? Not the people, the powerful. They sell a one-size-fits-all model, a ballot box every 5 years, a parliament of millionaires, a constitution in their language enforced by their lawyers. But where's the democracy when 90% can't afford dignity? Where's the human right to clean water, to education without debt, to live without drones overhead? When we define democracy on our terms, they call us dangerous. When we say, let us build our future differently, they cry, that's authoritarianism. They don't fear tyranny, they fear independence. A truly independent Africa, Asia, or Latin America, free to choose its systems, values, alliances, threatens their empire. Not because we're violent, but because we stop being profitable. Let's be clear, they don't care about democracy, they care about obedience. When they say human rights, they mean the right to be ruled quietly. But we've watched, we've learned, we know the difference between a sermon and a scam. I don't want their democracy, enriching the few, pacifying the many. I want something real, rooted in justice, not jargon, born from our soil, our pain, our struggle. So don't preach rights while your companies strip my country's minerals. Don't speak of democracy while your agents bankroll tyrants and destabilize the elected. We have our voice now, and it won't echo theirs. They called us rebels. They called us radicals. They called us dangerous, naive, angry. And maybe we are, but we'd rather be rebels than slaves. We'd rather be angry than numbed. We'd rather be naive in hope than seasoned in betrayal. We'd rather be dangerous to your empire than obedient to our destruction. This story is no longer yours to narrate. This future is no longer yours to sell back in pieces. We aren't asking permission. We aren't knocking with petitions and pleas. We're breaking the locks. After 500 years of conquest, colonization, conversion, control, we finally understand. You won't give us freedom, we must take it. You signed treaties that stole generations. You drew maps that erased nations. You held summits while we dug graves, and still we survived. You invaded our classrooms. You censored our histories. You silenced our prophets, and still we speak. This time, we speak in many tongues, from Dakar's bustling streets to Dhaka's crowded alleys, from the Amazon to Addis Ababa, from Harlem to Haiti. You can deplatform one of us, but 1,000 more will rise. You can jail one voice, but millions will echo the truth. You can kill a man, but you cannot kill a generation that refuses to forget. We are the children of Patrice Lumumba, of Thomas Sankara, of Steve Biko, of Malcolm X, of Frantz Fanon, of all those whose names were buried, whose legacies you feared, because they spoke a language you couldn't buy. Truth. So here's my declaration. We don't want reform, we want rupture. We don't want a seat at your table. We want to burn it and build our own. From soil, memory, liberation. And here's my promise. We'll rewrite the textbooks. We'll teach our children the names you erased. We'll sing the songs you banned. We'll rebuild with our hands what you tried to take with your banks. History won't remember your excuses, but it will remember our resistance. You said we were nothing. We are everything you fear. You said we were backward. We are the future. Unchained, unbought, unbroken. And we are coming, not as beggars, not as servants, not even as victims. We are coming as authors of a new era. This isn't the end. This is the reckoning.